Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Zoro is an extremely skilled warrior who is often needed to upgrade his blades to become even more powerful. And in this way, he's getting closer and closer of achieving that goal of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possibility of Zoro changing swords in this final saga of One Piece, which swords he might be able to get a hold of, and what it will take for Zoro to finally achieve that great goal that he's wanted since he was very young, becoming the greatest swordsman in the world. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it continues to motivate us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, in this final saga of One Piece, Zoro is going to face some of the most fearsome and powerful challenges that have ever crossed his paths as a swordsman. And along his journey, he has also been able to upgrade to several legendary swords, and each has played a crucial role in his quest for the title of greatest swordsman in the world. So in addition to the very powerful Enma, Sandai Kitetsu, and his beloved Wado Ichimonji, Zoro might be able to find or even acquire more powerful swords that will replace one of these three renowned swords. That way he can face those dangers that await him. One possible sword that he could acquire once he does attain that goal is the most impressive legendary black sword called Yoru, because this sword of imposing proportions is known for its haunting black blade that is capable of cutting through anything. The feats of this blade are extremely impressive because with a single swing of this sword, it is capable of slicing through objects over great distances, managing to cut through even the toughest of opponents with the greatest of ease. Yoru is a weapon that is feared by pirates and marines alike, and its surprising weight requires exceptional strength to wield it properly. However, Zoro, with all of his hard training and determination, could manage to wield it masterfully, becoming an even more formidable opponent in battle. Now, despite the fact that Yoru is already owned by Hawkeye's Mihawk, the current greatest swordsman in the world, Zoro could be able to obtain the sword once he defeats him and takes his title, and thus showing that wielding Yoru is an auxiliary sword for specific moments, and it also is that way of kind of carrying the championship belt as the greatest swordsman in the world. The next sword that Zoro could incorporate into his arsenal is the legendary Shodai Kitetsu, the sword known to be the most powerful cursed sword ever created. And this weapon has a dark and mysterious aura, being one of the 12 supreme grade swords in the world of One Piece. You see, legend has it that every Kitetsu has a curse that consumes its bearer's life over time. However, Zoro just isn't any ordinary man. Despite the curse, he believes he can harness the power of this sword and use it to his advantage. The Shodai Kitetsu would have exceptional sharpness and would be capable of cutting through nearly any indestructible armor or barrier. And if Zoro accepted the challenge to face the sword's curse, he could then rely on his unshakable will to overcome any obstacle. Unfortunately, this sword is currently lost and nobody knows where it is, which means that Zoro might be able to find it during this final journey. And as it is a Kitetsu sword, Zoro would be able to use it in the place of his Sandai Kitetsu, further strengthening his abilities, and it could even be used in his final battle against Mihawk. The third and most emotionally significant sword would be the amazing Ace, a sword that was formerly owned by the previous Pirate King Goldie Roger, and is now somewhere lost in the One Piece world. Through various flashbacks, we've seen feats of this sword in Roger's hands, and this sword has incredible resistance and cutting power, and it's also capable of withstanding Roger's entire journey in search of the greatest treasure in the world without even showing a single nick or crack in its blade. Just like our aforementioned blades, Ace is a part of one of those 12 most powerful swords in the world, those supreme grade swords, and it's capable of strengthening Zoro's skill set, allowing him to acquire a virtually indestructible weapon. Lastly, there is Gryphon, and that's the sword that's currently in Shanks' possession. This too is another one of the 12 supreme grade swords in the world of One Piece, and we've already seen what it can do when Shanks is wielding it, being able to allow Shanks to use extremely powerful techniques capable of practically instantly defeating his enemies, especially if what happened to Eustace Kid is any indication. Now, although it currently belongs to Shanks, this sword could end up coming into Zoro's possession after Shanks' presumed defeat by Luffy or even Blackbeard, and in this way, Zoro would obtain the sword of the swordsman who is just as skilled as Mihawk, because after all, before losing his arm, Shanks was dueling with Mihawk to earn the title of greatest swordsman in the world. So throughout this final saga of One Piece, Piece, we have to know that Zoro is going to face challenges that have gone far beyond simply acquiring new swords to become the greatest swordsman in the world. Because the true essence of this journey is self-discovery and the pursuit of mastery, not just physical skills, but really character and ethics as well. Throughout many of his fights, Zoro is going to realize that absolute power is not the only way to become a true master swordsman, because he's going to face opponents whose determination and skills are comparable to his own, forcing him to reflect on the meaning of his goal and question whether achieving the title of greatest swordsman is really enough. We've also speculated here on the channel that Zoro will find mentors and allies that may even help him see and find ways beyond his physical limits in these battles, encouraging him to further develop his feelings, because in this way, he will be able to evolve not only his swordplay, but also his swordsman's spirit all the further. And these teachings will open up his eyes to the importance of balancing his strength with the sound moral values that he needs to have in the world. Now, as we see in all journeys, regardless of the swords that Zoro ends up seeking out, there's always going to be a life lesson to the young swordsman, making him mature even more as not only a great swordsman, but it will raise his skills as a human being. The acquisition of these blades could also be some really interesting narrative pieces within our story, because if we consider the Shodai Kitetsu, who is known for having a curse, this could end up being one of those crucial points in Zoro's journey, because he'll have to face the difficult decision of accepting the power of this sword, while at the same time facing the consequences of having its curse. And this will demonstrate that being the greatest swordsman in the world requires not only physical strength, but also the courage to deal with any internal challenges or strife. If instead he came across the legendary Ace Sword, which was formerly owned by Goldie Roger, this could trigger an exciting and meaningful quest for Zoro, and he would understand that the true mastery is not just in possessing legendary blades, but how he uses that power to protect and inspire those he cares about. Acquiring Yoru would make Zoro have to overcome his limits in his confrontation against Mihawk, so that he could obtain this powerful black-bladed sword. And this could be an even greater goal than just the conquest of the aforementioned swords. And finally, if he were to acquire Gryphon, that would come with the defeat of a great enemy that is even more powerful than Mihawk, which would make this achievement come with a great benefit, allowing Zoro to have even greater confidence in his abilities and possibly notoriety around the world. So as our final saga progresses, we know that Zoro is going to face many challenges towards his final goal, and this is going to force him to rethink his motivations and his whole role in the world of One Piece, because these experiences will allow him to grow as a swordsman and as a person. And by the end of the journey, Zoro will become the world's greatest swordsman, but it's not going to be just because of his combat skills, but also the wisdom he gained throughout his quest. He'll be a living example that true mastery lies in the combination of strength, compassion, and integrity. You see, the central theme in this final saga of One Piece, especially when it comes to Zoro's part of the journey, is that becoming the world's greatest swordsman is a journey that goes far beyond just physical abilities. It's about improving yourself as a human being, facing your own fears and dilemmas, and understanding the true meaning of what it is to be a master swordsman. In that thrilling and epic conclusion of One Piece, Zoro's journey will reach its climax, and after facing the most powerful opponents and overcoming both physical and emotional challenges, he will finally find himself facing the legendary swordsman Dracula Mihawk, the current keeper of the Yoru sword and considered the current greatest swordsman in the world. Of course, the confrontation between Zoro and Mihawk would be a battle of epic proportions, where both will demonstrate their mastery in the art of swordsmanship with their new legendary swords and their unshakable inner strength. During that clash, Zoro will have to use all the knowledge gained throughout his journey, remembering the teachings of his mentors and his allies, because Zoro understands that being the greatest swordsman is not about beating opponents in combat, but also protecting those that you care about and fighting for a better world. With that intense battle and a possible victory coming from Zoro, he could then become the new owner of Yoru. And by becoming the world's greatest swordsman, Zoro not only earns a title, but earns the respect and admiration of all swordsmen and pirates and marines in the world. Zoro, in fact, would become a symbol of courage, honor, and resilience, and inspire future generations of swordsmen to follow in his footsteps, and demonstrate that the new generation is capable of defeating those who occupy the whole world and seek to hold it under its thumb. And again, at the end of this saga, the true meaning of Zoro's journey will be revealed, and it will demonstrate that being the greatest swordsman in the world is not about being the strongest in battle, but about the path taken to reach that goal, overcoming oneself, the pursuit of noble values, and of course the inspiration that it brings to others. So with his story of determination, courage, and compassion, Zoro will become a living legend in the world of One Piece, leaving a lasting legacy that will echo down the ages. And his journey will also be a life lesson for all us viewers, teaching that true mastery is finding the balance between outer strength and inner strength, and that true power lies in the constant quest to become a better person. So with all that said, my friends, we'd now love to know what you think about it. So of the blades that we've mentioned in this video, which one do you think is most likely to come into Zoro's possession? And also, when do you think Zoro might be able to unlock and turn any one of his blades into a black blade? Because we've seen that there's potential in not only Enma, but especially the Wanoichimonji, because that is the sword that has carried Zoro throughout his entire journey. So which one do you think would achieve that final level of becoming the legendary black blade? Also, how do you think a duel between Zoro and Mihawk would end up playing out? Now we know that this will probably be some of the greatest action we will ever see in all of the thousands of chapters of One Piece we've read. But how do you think it'll actually go? And do you think, like we have speculated here on the channel, that it might end in that epic culmination that brings things full circle, where instead of Mihawk cutting through Zoro's blades, that Zoro cuts through Mihawk's, and thus really and truly achieves that goal, taking the throne and the title of greatest swordsman in the world? Let us know what you think about that in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, we'd like to thank you all so much for watching, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.